welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And this is Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder. And today's episode is brought to you by Motif Medical. The Motif Luna breast pump is covered by insurance and proven to provide more milk in less time. And we will hear more from our sponsors later, but you can head to badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com and check out our sponsor page. See if you can give them any of your business because they make this podcast possible. And while you're there, scroll down to your email address and we'll send episodes straight to your inbox every week, and check out our shop page with our cool merch. And we are on Patreon and we would love to see you over there. You can find the link to the Patreon tiers to choose from at the top of the show notes, wherever you're listening from. We have our exclusive episodes, mini episodes and demos. We have our Revolution Parenting episodes. We have live Zoom hangouts where we all just get on Zoom and hang out and talk about breastfeeding and other things. So yeah, check that out. And we're also holding our ongoing giveaway. So if you leave a review anywhere on the internet, send us a screenshot and your address to badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll send you a little goodie bag of stickers and cards. And now Dianne has our review of the week.
Yes, and this came to you. I'm not sure where it came from, but you sent it to me. It says glowing review coming y'all's way. I stumbled upon your podcast just recently. I'm a first-time mom. My daughter is an exclusively breastfed 7-month-old, and I've had several spouts of anxiety around her feeding, weight gain, etc., due to some comments made by our first pediatrician. We have since switched. She said things like, "We need to avoid dehydration and failure to thrive. Her soft spot isn't sunken in yet." I called our local lactation consultant regularly for tips and motivation, which helped immensely. Your podcast has helped just as much. Your science-backed information is delivered in such a fun and interesting way that has empowered me, and I'm sure women like me, beyond measure. I feel much more confident and comfortable to follow my body and trust what it's doing to support my baby. I now have faith that I can make it at least a full year of breastfeeding when that goal didn't seem feasible despite my desire to do so. Your words are encouraging and uplifting. Thank you. So, congratulations to you, and I'm glad you switched from that other pediatrician.
I know. Wait, what? The baby's dehydrated because their soft spot isn't sunken in yet?
So we need to avoid dehydration and failure to thrive. Her soft spot isn't sunken in. So she must have been like, that's what she was looking for, was for her soft spot to sink in.
So she
showed
wasn't
that she was dehydrated. No, she wasn't.
Okay.
But even basically she's saying like, we're looking for problems that aren't there.
Right.
We'll just wait for her to become dehydrated and failure to thrive, and we're going to watch for her soft spot to sink
and then
in.
we'll tell you to put her on formula instead of dealing with the issue. The issue of which there is none.
Exactly.
That's really annoying. I'm glad you switched. I love hearing it when people say they switch pediatricians, because I don't think people always understand that you can do that. Like, these people are not, you don't work for them. They are not like your authority figure. Like, if you don't like one, go to a different one.
Exactly. Yeah. You can totally do it. I've heard some people say, I fired my pediatrician. I'm like, whoa, you go. But it's kind of true. Like, if it comes down to it, like, you can switch if you don't like where you are.
I did that to that one lady who was always saying weird things to us. Like, she didn't know why the chart said to start with vegetables or something, of the solids.
Cereal or something.
Yeah, cereal. And she's like, I don't know. And then she said like other things, and she was like, okay, well, so you can start like I don't know. You can start like leaving him to cry for like 1 minute, like 1 minute the first night, and then like 2 minutes the second night. And I was like, well, he sleeps in a bassinet next to our bed. And she was like, oh. She had no idea what to do about that.
She must have been brand spanking new.
She was really new and had very little information straight out of medical school.
That is crazy. At least own it. I mean, she's a pediatrician, so she can't really say, I don't really know anything. I saw a family the other day, and the dad was a doctor, but not anything in pediatrics. And he was like, I know nothing about babies. And I was like, okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that and not telling me a whole bunch of things about babies.
Right. Like we know you don't get the info. I mean, when you're a pediatrician, you should, but they still don't get anything about breastfeeding. So it doesn't really matter. We hear that all the time. In fact, I'm taking a pottery class right now.
Oh, cool.
And well, I suck at it. I'm really, really bad. But I have like 500 little dishes that were supposed to be like some sort of bowl. I really suck at this. Everybody around me is like making cups and stuff, coffee mugs and stuff. And I'm like still on a bowl. I just can't do it. But one of the people in the class is a pediatrician. Like she's new, she's a resident, and still working like in the hospitals, doing her pediatric stuff. But she was like, when she heard I was a lactation consultant, she was like, oh, good. Because she was like, I know nothing about any of that stuff. I count on.
Yeah, I hope that there's doctors coming out now who will just be like, here. I mean, I will say that is one thing that young doctor did, is she handed me information about like lactation consultants.
That's good.
She was like, here's like a list of lactation consultants. And that was like the only information she gave us. But I mean, at least she wasn't like telling us random shit that wasn't even right.
I mean, and that's what they should do. And this family that I saw with the dad was a doctor, and they got my information from their doctor, and it's like, he was like, okay, the baby's not gaining well. I want you to check in with this lactation consultant. And it's like, that's what they should be doing. That's what should happen.
If they weren't like, if their whatever wasn't growing properly, you'd check in with a specialist about that.
Right.
It's like anything else that's going on with the baby. They should be referring you to the person who specializes in that thing.
So if anybody out there right now is looking to do some lactation stuff, like, if we've had a lot of people that, have messaged us and said, I've become a lactation counselor, or, I'm working towards an IBCLC, make sure you hit up those pediatric and family practices. Make sure you hit them up and give them your information and say, please refer people to me. That is definitely a place to start with getting referrals, because a lot of times they don't know who is in their area. They don't know who to, that's a lot of times why they don't send people to lactation consultants, is they don't have an idea who is one. So reach out to them and be like, here's my information. I'm a lactation specialist, and, send me all your breastfeeding problems. That is definitely a place to start for that.
That's cool. Yeah. I feel like we could just talk about this the whole time.
I know it. But we're going to talk about nipple pain, because this has come up a lot lately for older babies.
And it really has. Yeah. And this is also something you could talk to your pediatrician about, and they'll be like, well, it's just time to switch. It's time to stop.
Yeah. I don't know if they would know what to say to you if you went in with your 6-month-old that had nipple pain. Yeah.
My nipple hurts. The baby's like 6 months old, 8 months old. They'll just be like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, they need formula anyway because of the calories or whatever.
Just because. But I've got a whole list of why you might be having nipple pain at, I don't know, name your age, 3, 4, 6, 8 months, whatever that may be.
Whatever you consider an older baby.
Exactly. Whatever you consider to be an older baby.
Now, like a lot of toddlers?
That's a different story.
Is it a different story?
Well, maybe not so much, because I think a lot of the things are the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
The same as toddlers. But you don't expect to have nipple pain when they're older. That's the thing.
Yeah, but you do.
I mean, you go through all that nipple pain when they're young. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, when they're young, when they're like newborn, and then you have a baby that's like 4 or 5 months old, and all of a sudden you're having like nipple pain again, you're having nipple damage again or something. You're like, what is going on? Why is this even happening?
Yep. I mean, it happens with a 2-year-old too. Suddenly it hurts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did that happen for you?
Yeah, it did. And because they grow, by the time they're toddlers, they've got, a mouthful of teeth. Maybe not a mouthful, but they have teeth. They're growing. They've been nursing this whole time, but their mouth is bigger now. And they have to kind of learn how to latch again, because it's just different now that their mouth is bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, and they also, older babies and toddlers, I feel like start doing stupid things. Like Jack would latch on and then he would kind of like rock his head back and forth, like towards my nipple and away from my nipple and just kind
Oh
of
my
rock like
gosh.
that. And I'm like, that hurts. Stop it. Like, I don't know why you're doing that. Maybe it's comforting. I don't know, but I had to get him to stop.
Not
And then you
comforting
got to
for
like,
you.
huh?
Not comforting for you.
No. Yeah. Right. Right.
Jeez. That sounds
Yeah.
terrible.
And then, it just gets like weirder for them to latch. And then you're kind of like working on latching with them all over again, which you can do.
So, yeah, it's just like, yeah. So one of the things that I do have on my list is the growth. And that starts early. Like,
yeah.
I mean, even when they're like 4 months old, like their facial muscles, their jaws, everything is like growing. And they might need to figure out again how they're latching. And you might find that there is some discomfort while they're kind of working it out because of that growth. Sometimes, and because of the teeth, teething. So I feel like those things kind of go together a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the teething, teething causes all sorts of problems. So we'll get into that in a second. Right now I'm talking about like two different things at the same time. But the growth that is a thing. And even if we can't like see that happening, like there's definitely changing in their facial muscles, in their face, in their jaw, all that stuff. Sometimes I tell people, especially if they had seen chiropractic with their infant earlier, I will send them back again, because sometimes that can really help a lot. I had one mom, and I think I might have talked about this once before, who would see chiropractic with her baby. And her baby was probably about 3 or 4 months old. And she's like, yeah, I took the baby to the chiropractor because I was having pain. And sure enough, her jaw was out of alignment. And I was like, oh, look, I wonder how that happened. Just growing.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, stuff happens and they just need a little bit of help with that growth. I mean, they're growing in all other areas.
Yeah, really rapidly.
Exactly. Really rapidly. So why would they not be growing in their face and in their jaw and all that stuff too?
Mm-hmm.
So teething. Ugh. This just causes a whole slew of issues.
Yeah.
I feel like. I mean, not just the fact that is, obviously growth happening for them, but it's just and we've got, episodes on this too, but it's just painful for them and uncomfortable.
Yeah. I know, it's so painful for them that it almost seems like this isn't working. Like this part of our evolution. It's like, wow, this is it's so awful for them. It just seems like, why this doesn't work.
I mean, it's just, I just feel so bad for them because they're miserable.
And it interferes with so many things. It interferes with their like eating. Mm-hmm. It interferes with like all these
sleeping,
things. The sleeping and just so bad.
So, and they can start early too. Like sometimes people, and we're not really sure because it's different with every baby. We can't even say, oh, at this age, they're going to start doing this. At this age, they're going to start doing this. It's just kind of like a guessing game. And we kind of take it with like, okay, your baby's really drooly. They're probably teething. Like we don't know any better. We have no idea what's going on. We don't know when.
I do. I remember that having a baby and just being like, well, they must be either teething or growing. It's like they're so upset and you try everything and nothing works. And it's like, all right, well, no, that must just be teething or growing.
Yeah. I mean, just something in there.
Just something that's bothering them. I always think about this sorry, I keep interrupting you.
Oh, no, you're fine.
But I always think about this with like the growing pains. You hear from a lot of like small children, right? Small children, like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can count. You're around that age of kids. Kids will be like, "Oh, my knee hurts, my elbow hurts," and we think of that as growing pains, right? Or we could, if we don't think of anything else, growing pains. There's a really common thing about the back of the knee for small children. Like sometimes that hurts. But like, what about in babyhood and toddlerhood when they can't say, "Oh, my knee hurts"?
Right.
Like, does their knee not hurt? We don't know. They're growing so fast. Like, it must just hurt sometimes, even before they can say, ow, that hurts.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I even remember that. Like when I was like 7 or 8, I remember feeling like achiness in my joints, like at night and stuff.
And imagine just feeling that when you're like 3 or 6 months old or whatever. They don't know. They're just going to be crabby.
It's kind of interesting. I had breakfast the other day with a friend of mine who's going through breast cancer treatment. Oh. And she said that she gets shots that supports like bone growth and bone marrow growth.
Oh.
And she goes, it is so uncomfortable and painful. Ugh. And I go, I wonder if that's what kids feel.
Uh-huh.
You know, like I really wonder.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know, but it hurts. Like, she goes, it's very uncomfortable. Like, wow. But, you know, she can take some hydrocodone and be done with it.
Right.
Can't really do that for our babies.
Right. Just nurse them.
Yeah.
That helps.
The nursing helps. Well, it's a pain reliever.
Yeah.
The nursing. Yeah.
Right.
So the teething, we know that it's uncomfortable for a lot of reasons, right? We know it's painful for them. We know that like their little gums can become really sensitive and tender. Usually it's worse right before those teeth pop through. Once the teeth pop through, it's usually fine. But once the teeth are getting ready to pop through, if they're at that stage of the game, it can be really uncomfortable for them to nurse. They might not want to nurse. They might refuse to nurse. And then people are like, what do I do? The baby's not really eating well. Certain teeth cause more problems, like depending on which teeth are coming in, like the eye teeth, those sharp ones on the top, those like the little fang teeth, those are most painful for them. So if like those ones are coming in, that's, you know, worse. It's harder for them. What we always tell people to do, or what I usually tell people to do, is like, I mean, they might chomp down a little bit more because they're trying to put pressure on their gums. You know, they might be just not nursing well at all. So one of the things we usually say to do, like if you do Tylenol or anything like that with your babies, maybe try a little bit, you know, try to give them a little bit of Tylenol, like before, not every time they nurse, but sometimes that can be helpful. If if you don't like to do anything like that, ice, those, you know, the little frozen teethers, breastfeeding or breast milk popsicles, anything like that that's going to help to numb their gums a little bit and be a little bit comforting for them can help a little bit too. But there's not a lot.
Come back to it, because I think this is what a lot of people do is they'll keep trying. You know, like, ow, they just chomp down and then like start over again. It's like if they're chomping down and they're doing all of this, just take them off and try again later.
Exactly.
Don't keep putting your nipple in their mouth.
Yeah. Because they just don't want to at that point. Yeah, they're not having it. Now, once they have their teeth, if they are biting, then that's something that, and I know we've got episodes on this because it's a huge question that comes up all the time. Every time we do a live session on Facebook or Instagram, I think somebody asks about biting. Like always. Biting comes up all the time. And if you have a baby that's biting, they're not eating. You can it's physically impossible for them to bite and eat at the same time. So if you have a baby that's biting, they are not eating. They're not interested in eating. Usually the biting will happen either in the very beginning or at the very end. So it's kind of, if they're biting in the beginning, like Abby said, take them off, try again later. It's just not something that they're having right now. If they're biting at the end, I always tell people you have to go back to watching them again. Because once they're at the age, and that's another thing that kind of happens that we'll talk about after our break, we have to start watching them again. We kind of get to the point where we're not watching them as much because you just pop them on. You're comfortable enough to just kind of like pop your baby on and go about your business and do other things and look at your phone and all that stuff. But you have to go back to watching them again. And as they start to slow down or doze off, or, you know, sometimes they want your attention. So they'll bite at the end of the feed. So you have to kind of beat them to the punch and take them off before that happens. But we should probably take a break.
Yeah, let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
All right, we'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Motif Medical. Are you in search of the perfect pump for your breastfeeding days? The Motif Luna breast pump is covered by insurance and proven to provide more milk in less time. The Motif Luna is lightweight, sleek, quiet, and customizable so you can quickly find what works for you and your baby. The Luna also features a backlit LCD screen, built-in night light, closed system, quiet motor, and auto shutoff. And the battery-powered model gives you even more freedom and flexibility with a rechargeable battery that lasts over 2 hours. In a third-party study, 5 out of 6 moms reported more milk in less time than the leading pump brands. The expression mode works to express milk from the breast as efficiently as possible, while the massage mode would stimulate letdown by mimicking baby's natural nursing pattern. Get ready to make your pumping days easier with the Motif Luna. Head to Motif Medical, that's M-O-T-I-F Medical, M-O-T-I-F Medical.com and use code BADASS for 15% off of your purchase. And today's sponsor and the promo code can be found in our show notes under this episode, wherever you're listening from. And it can also be found at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. And over at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, you'll also find all of our other episodes and information about scheduling your very own one-on-one online lactation consultation with Dianne.
Yes. So let's talk about that when we're ourselves distracted. Because I got it on my list when your baby's distracted. But when we're distracted, sometimes babies will just kind of do their own thing. So you might be, like I said, you might kind of get to the point where you are doing other things while you're nursing. Your baby's a little older. You kind of pop them on. They're in the corner of your arm there. You've got an arm free. You're, looking at your phone. You're talking on your phone. You're, doing something, or who knows, whatever it is that you can do while you're nursing, because we're crazy good multitaskers, right? So we can just do all these other things.
Yeah. We really don't like being in the moment.
No.
Like you think of all these, people are like, oh, just enjoy your baby and hold your baby and nurse them and look at them in the eye. It's like, who does that?
I know.
I'm like, where's my phone?
I know, right? Like, we're always like, well, there's got to be something else I could be doing right now.
Yeah.
So answering emails, come on, we just do all these other things.
Yeah.
So your baby sometimes can just wiggle themselves in a different position, or bite down if they're looking for your attention, or, just start pulling. That's another thing that babies will do. And I swear to God, I have no idea why this happens. I think it's an age thing. And that's what I tell people, because people ask me about this all the time. When your babies get to the point, I don't even know when it is, they get distracted around the 4-month mark. And that can cause some nipple pain for you, because they can pull on and off, or turn their head with your nipple in their mouth while they're looking for things. Pull off and then go back on, and then pull again off and go back on. Or sometimes they'll just pull with your nipple in their mouth. Just pull.
They're latched on and then they turn around.
Yep. They'll physically put their hand on you and pull back. I'm doing it right now, but nobody can see me. Pull back. So, and they just stretch, and it's it hurts, and it can really cause some nipple trauma. And people are like, why does my baby do that? I have no idea. And if somebody out there knows, please enlighten me, because I do not know why babies just pull like that. It could be like a jack thing where it's comforting for them to just move around or whatever. But as they get older, they will definitely start moving around more, start putting themselves into different positions, start pulling off, coming on and off. And when you already have some nipple pain, pulling on and off and on and off and on and off is not comfortable at all. So it could be that that's some of the things is just adding to that nipple trauma and nipple pain again.
Yeah.
The sloppy latch.
Ugh. That's got to be one of the most common things that happen.
Sloppy latches.
Yeah, they just get lazy.
Yeah.
Lazy motherfuckers.
I know. They do.
Babies are so lazy. Or shallow, they just get that shallow. So this happens a lot when they're falling asleep. Where they'll get that lazy, shallow latch, and that hurts.
Yeah. That's why I say you have to kind of go back to watching them again and take them off before that happens, because you kind of have an idea okay, my baby's usually done feeding, it usually takes them around, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever your baby is doing. And then they kind of doze off, or then they're usually done, or, whatever, they go back to playing or something like that. So you kind of have an idea in your head of, about what time they're done. So you do have to kind of watch them and be like, all right, they're starting to doze off. Because sometimes too, when they doze off, they can just bite down. You know how like when you those jerky movements when you fall asleep, and that can start happening too. So you really just got to take them off. They become very shallow.
Yeah. And this is something that I recently was emailing with somebody about this, that the baby, is starting to do that slack jaw thing through the night, falling asleep and getting slack jawed, clamping down on the nipple. And then when she pulls her nipple out, the baby wakes up looking for the nipple and then repeat 1,000 times.
Ugh. So what did you tell her to do?
I don't even remember. I should try to find the email. But I I remember that, I just am like, I remember that. And now I'm on the spot. So now I have to find the email. So I can remember what I told her. But here I do remember what I told her. I told her to start working on getting a better, because now the baby's growing. I think it was an older baby or a toddler, where they do just start like getting lazier about their latch, and working on that latch during the day, having them get a deeper latch, and working on the latch of getting a deeper latch, like having them open wide, having do the little sandwich squeeze with your breast and get more of your nipple in there, and work on that during the day, and hopefully that would kind of transition to the new latch throughout the night.
Yeah.
Just kind of getting more used to it.
Because we see that with those older babies, right? Like I said, too, we're just kind of like, we also become lazy with it, and like just kind of, let them go on there however they go on, especially during the night. And it's a lot of times when you find that there's more problems. People be like, well, yeah, I'm really lazy about making sure they're latched well during the nighttime. But we know that pain, that nipple pain, is from when those latches are shallow. I mean, biting is different, or, gumming and stuff like that. That's a little bit different. But the that nipple pain from a shallow latch is from the nipple being up against the hard palate, right? We know that's what's happening there. So having your nipple deeper in their mouth, where your soft palate is, that's not going to be painful. So working on, like Abby said, working on making sure that there's a deeper latch, because they tend to become very shallow. They come on the end of the nipple and just kind of like, especially if it's more for like a comfort thing.
Yep.
That is very, very common when it's just a comfort type of nursing. So you really, like I said, you really got to kind of watch them. I've had people with newborns that are like, it's just hurt. I'm like, that's when you can take them off when they're done eating. Because if they're just into that phase where they're just like comfort nursing, some babies become very, very shallow, and it's painful. And you just can't keep that up, because it will cause nipple damage after a while. If there is nipple damage or nipple trauma and then they're coming on and off, like we know that nipple trauma feels worse is when they start with that feeding. So if they're coming on and off and on and off and on and off, and they're kind of pulling too, then you're starting that nipple trauma all over again every single time they pop on and off. So if your baby is distracted, there's some things that you should probably try to do with them to kind of help along with that. And I know we have episodes on distracted babies, but we're going to definitely talk about it because it's a thing, right? Like I said, it starts usually around the 4-month mark. Some babies a little sooner, just kind of depending on what's going on with them. But usually around the 3-4 month mark, you'll find that your baby's getting more distracted. And you might find that they're just like looking all around while they're nursing. That you used to be able to nurse them in public, and now you're like, oh, now they're looking all around. Or you're at the doctor's office and they're looking around and they're not really nursing well. They've got your nipple in their mouth still, but they're kind of like looking. Maybe their eyes are moving around. Maybe they're pulling off to look and see what's around them. If there's somebody else in the room, if the cat comes in the room, if the dog comes in the room, if you've got the TV on and there's a noise, they're going to turn their head. You might need to go into a place that's more quiet and dark, so your days of nursing out in where your life might be over for a little bit. And this doesn't last forever. It's just their developmental phase at that point. So you have to end up kind of going into like a dark, quiet room. That might be way more helpful. Less stimulation. Turn off the TV. Keep the stimulation to a minimum, just so you can get through the feeding. A couple other things you can try to do. One of the things that I suggest to do too is like distract them. Like have a nursing necklace, something that they can play with. Nurse in a carrier where they're a little bit more confined. You can walk around with them because that will kind of keep them focused on nursing. If they're like, if you're moving, that's very comforting for them. So kind of walk around the room while they're nursing. And those things will help a little bit with that distraction and kind of get you through that and kind of get past them just pulling on and off all the time. I don't know if you have anything you want to say about distracted babies.
No, that's good. You get distract them, try to figure out a way to minimize the distraction.
It's really hard. I find that like going into a room with less stimulation works a lot. But if you have other kids and stuff and it's just not possible for you to just like up and go into another room, then or in a quiet, dark room, then you're going to have to find another way to do it.
Well,
nursing in a carrier works.
Yeah, nursing in a carrier works. But honestly, if they're also looking around, like they're not eating.
Right.
Like if they're just like not in the mood to be eating and they're kind of just hanging on there because, this is what we do, just take them off.
Yeah.
Like I feel like we get so focused on like having to keep them latched on all the time. If they're not having it, just whatever. Just take them off. It's fine.
Well, then there's such a focus on my baby has to eat right now.
Right. Yeah.
And
they're not going to.
They're not. And then they'll give them a bottle instead. And it's like, but that's not necessary. Just wait until they're ready.
Right. And this is a lot of times where babies start eating more during the night because they're just too busy during the day. And so we think, well, they haven't really eaten today. But then you ask, it's like, well, what'd they do at night? Oh, they ate all night. Yeah. That counts.
And it's not ideal for you, obviously. I mean, the last thing you want is to be up all night again.
No. Yeah. That's what, just lay down with them.
Yeah. This is where the bed sharing really helps. And it is a developmental stage that you just can't skip over. It's not ideal for everybody. And it does bring a lot of anxiety to a lot of families who are like, my baby's just not eating well during the day. It brings a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, because everyone tells you they should be.
Right. Everybody's like, and it's like your baby at the age of 4 or 5 months is not going to let themselves starve. They're not going to. They know how to eat. They know when they want to eat. They're very well aware of their feeding and they're not going to let themselves starve. They are not.
They're not. And they get to be such, and this is kind of off topic, but they get to be such efficient eaters that it's like, okay, I'm tired. I'm getting ready to fall asleep for a nap. They latch on. They'll chug a whole meal's worth of milk in 120 seconds. In the 2 minutes that it takes them to fall asleep, they had a whole meal and now they're knocked out.
Yeah.
And that counts. They don't have to nurse. Yeah. They don't need to nurse anymore for, 20 minutes to get a full feeding. Like they're really, really good at it now.
Yeah.
And I just say for this nipple pain stuff, it's always going to come down to getting a better latch. Getting that like deeper latch. And if they're distracted, they're not latched well. If they're biting, they're not latched well. If they're all of these things, they're not latched well. And that's why it hurts. So get them off or say, or pop them off and then start over again. That's another thing you can do. Stick your finger in and break the suction. Take your nipple out and then try again. Have them like, put your nipple up by their nose so that they have to reach up, that they have to open wide and put your breast in like the C hole to flatten it like a sandwich. And put as much in there as you can.
Try different positions if you need to. But yeah, it always, like Abby said, it always comes back to that deeper latch. And whereas you thought, well, we were good, we were fine, we weren't having any problems for 3 months. I thought we were past this.
No.
you might have to reteach them again how to get that deeper latch, and you just go back to the regular, details of a deep latch. Take them off if they're shallow, position them well, and make sure that they are on to where it does not hurt over and over again if you need to.
Yeah.
Which again is not ideal because we think we're past it, but we're not. Your baby's learning and growing and distracted, and things are different.
And
so what do we do with...
Sorry.
Go ahead. No,
once you're working on that and working on it, they will learn. They'll get used to it. They'll get the feeling like, okay, this is what it feels to be latched on, and then you won't have to work on it as much.
Right.
Because they will learn, and then you can kind of go back to forgetting about it until it happens again a couple months later.
But like we always say, your breastfeeding relationship just evolves, right?
Totally.
Like it just kind of evolves, and things change and move around. But what to do about that latch pain or about that nipple pain? You might need to go back to like some nipple balm again, some nipple butters. You might need to do a little, making sure like those, whatever you used in the past. I was about to like list all these things. We've got silverettes, we've got hydrogel pads. People just use lanolin. I would not necessarily go with lanolin. But nipple butters, whatever feels good to you, your own breast milk on there can, be really healing.
Sometimes why would you not go with lanolin?
Because it can cause some allergies. It can like cause some skin breakdown and stuff like that. So some people, like if you've used it in the past and you really liked it and you found that it worked for you. But I don't know. I kind of like the nipple butters, things that have like the coconut oil and stuff like that in it.
I feel like most of the nipple cream these days is lanolin free.
Yeah.
So if you like lanolin, you usually just have to get like straight lanolin.
Straight lanolin, yeah. If that's what if that's what you're using, if that's what you like, if you've used that in the past and you found that it worked. If you've used something in the past and it worked for you, then stay with that. You probably still have it because I don't know anybody that's used an entire jar of nipple butter.
I still have it. I still have like all of the nipple creams.
Yeah. Because you don't use as much as you get, right? You're just not
going to
use an entire jar.
There's always so much in there. I'm like, damn. I'm like, this is a nice jar. I'm going to keep it when the nipple cream ends, I guess, in 20 years.
I know. Well, because you can use it for other things.
You could totally use it. Yeah, I still use it.
But you might have to, pull it out and use it again.
Yep.
Use something else again. So it really just, or maybe, if it's not working, then try something different. Coconut oil, any of those things that kind of help. Air drying. Let things kind of like air dry a little bit.
Yeah.
But treat it like you would have treated newborn nipple pain. Because it might not be a newborn, but it's still nipple pain.
Yep.
Well, yeah, but that's about it.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye.